Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about area. Objective. I can find the area of a shape and write a number model using multiplication. Suppose you want to order carpet to cover your bedroom floor. How would you find out how many square yards of carpet to buy? Square yards equals area. To find the square yards of carpet you need to buy, you would need to find the area of the room. What are some ways that we could do that? Well, you would have to measure. But after you measure, when you write area, it needs a special units. All areas are squared. Let me show you some examples. You can measure using a square foot. You can measure using a square yard. You can measure using a square inch. You can measure using a square centimeter. Or if you were measuring a really large area, you could measure using square meters. The important thing to remember when we talk about area is no matter what your unit is, they are always square units. Let's go ahead now and carpet this room. We're going to start by going through some questions to help us get to the answer. The first question says, how many squares are there in the highlighted row? Let's pretend that this is the room and the highlighted row is right here, and we need to figure out how many squares there are that are highlighted. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is the first part of my question. I'm going to go ahead and write down 10. There were 10 squares in that highlighted row. The next question says, how many equal rows of squares are there inside the rectangle? So that means how many rows of 10 squares are there inside this whole rectangle? Rows go across, so there is 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows, and 5 rows. There would be 5 rows that are all exactly the same length as that highlighted row. So then we come to the next question. How many squares are there in all? Well, if there are 10 rows and there are 5 of them, I can count by tens 5 times. 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. This is using multiplication. So there are 50 squares in all. How much carpet should I order? I should order 50 square, and it didn't tell us the unit. Let's just pretend it's feet in this example. So I would need to order 50 square feet of carpet for my room. If I was writing a number model, I'd first write the number of squares in a row, that was 10. And now I have a multiplication sign. That means I'm going to take these 10 squares and multiply them 5 times. I had 5 rows of 10, so I can put times 5, and that gives me my answer of 50. Let's carpet a different size room. Going through those same steps, the first question says how many squares are there in a highlighted row? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This time there are 9 squares in the highlighted row. How many equal rows of squares are there inside the rectangle? There's 1, 2, 3. Sometimes maybe it's helpful to draw a line. Let's just draw a line so we know how many rows we've counted. So there are 3 rows, 4 rows, 5 rows, 6 rows, 7 rows, 8 rows, 9 rows, and 10 rows. Go ahead and write down 10. How many squares are there in all? Well, I have 10 rows and they each have 9. Just like with adding and subtracting, we have a turnaround rule. With adding there's a turnaround rule. We can do that with multiplication too. So instead of doing 9 10 times, I can count by tens 9 times. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90. How many squares are there in all? There are 90 squares. How much carpet should you order? We would order 90 square, and this time let's say this is yards. 90 square yards. Number model, I'm going to put my 9 for my highlighted squares times the number of rows. We had 10 rows to get my answer of 90. Now earlier I told you there was a turnaround rule. You could do 10 times 9 and turn those numbers around to get your answer of 90. That works as well. Okay, let's do another one. How many squares are there in the highlighted row? Take a moment to think about that. Yep, it's a pretty small row, so we have 3 squares. How many equal rows of squares are there inside the rectangle? Take a minute to count them. And there are 6. How many squares are there in all? Go ahead and figure that out. There are 18. How much carpet should you order? You would order 18 square, and whatever the unit is, this time let's just say centimeters, pretend it's small for a dollhouse or something. So we are going to go ahead and write our number model. 3 highlighted squares times 6 rows equals an answer of 18. Time for the quiz question. Please take out your notebook. This is quiz question number 1. What is the area of the rectangle that you see? Quiz question number 2. This is a 8 by what rectangle? You need to figure out what is the question mark. This is an 8 by what rectangle? Quiz question number 3. What type of unit is used to measure area? We always use something units. Please fill in the word that I would put in this blank. And that's it for today. I'll see you back in class soon.